afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our breakout session room on digital trade in financial sectors. In the financial sector, my name is Lorraine Kithinji, and I'm your moderator for this session. I have worked in diverse service sectors in the service industry, from insurance, training, investment, marketing, and most recently in the human resource management. And I'm very excited to learn how the service industry contributes to international and global trade from our panel of experts in the industry. So before I introduce my panelists, I would like to go through some expectations from the session. And first, we will introduce our panel that represents diverse and major players in the service industry. Then we will look at the trade opportunities and barriers from the service-based firms in Africa. Then we'll look at the impact of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement to the service sector. And finally, we'll request our panelists to recommend solutions to increase participation of African-based services in the digital trade. So without further delays, let me introduce our panelists. And my first speaker is Mr. Darren Franks, who is the founder and CEO of Talentinthecloud that offers specialist leadership search services in African tech firms. And when I asked my panel to share something unique about them, something we could not find on Google, he said that he trained as a chef 2 years after leaving school. So I look forward to learning more about you, Mr. Franks, and about Talentinthecloud. My next panelist is Ms. Gaitha, who is now a familiar face for us who have been following the conference. Ms. Gaitha is the founder and chief executive at the Regal African Group, a leading financial advisory firm. And the conference is right in her alley because she's a global trade and investment expert. Her unique fact is that she gifted herself a trip to Asia after completing her MBA. So thank you so much, Anne, for being part of our panel. We hope to learn so much from you. My third panelist is Ms. Charity Githinji. She is an impressive force in the tourism industry, to have founded Tandaza Africa and KenyaBooking.com. And she, unlike me, she's served in several lines within the services industry. She goes for uncharted waters, she said. She said that the words no and I can't do not resonate with her. So welcome to the panel, Ms. Kithinji. As we jump into the conversation, I would like to request our audience to type their questions on the video wall. They should be on the right side of your screen. So please keep the questions coming and we will allocate some time to answer them. All right? So that's on the video wall, which should be on the right side of your screen. So let's jump right into the conversation. And I'll start with you, Darren. Please allow me to call you Darren.
Absolutely. So, you called a lot worse, so Darren is fine.
Thank you so much for that. So please tell us about yourself and about Talentinthecloud and what you're doing as a business.
Great. Thanks, Lorraine. Hi, everyone. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here this morning or this afternoon. I'm currently in just outside of Cape Town. I've been in South Africa for about 7 years now. I've been working across the African continent for about a decade. My background, as Lorraine mentioned, my first career was as a chef. I still have the scars to prove it, but that was many, many, many years ago. And the last 22 years, I've been involved in the world of staffing, specifically around technology. And over the last 7 years since I founded, well, 6 years since I founded Talentinthecloud, specifically around fintech. So we support a number of fintechs across the African continent. We do some work outside of Africa as well in Europe, but they tend to be bigger players that are looking at Africa as a new venture and a new horizon. As I mentioned, I'm based in Cape Town. I've got offices in Mauritius, London, and here in South Africa. Team is now fully remote. I'm sure we'll cover some remote working and uniquenesses around the last couple of years a bit later on today. But yeah, so that's a bit about me. All of our clients are fintechs, as I mentioned, either payments companies, challenger banks, remittance companies. or organizations providing services specifically to that sector. So that's a bit about me. Anything else you'd like to know, Lorraine?
No, that is brilliant. And while Googling you, like I said, the chef is something you could not find online. No. But I discovered that the efficiency of your talent capture systems, which is a part of your service, and you'll give us more information about it. It cuts up to 71% of the recruitment process. And as a HR myself, I'm impressed, and I would like to know, how have you embedded technology in your business, and how has that enabled you to provide services across Africa and internationally, all the way while based in Cape Town?
Yeah, so I think to put some context around that, from little old Cape Town, we've provided services in 31 countries over the last 5.5 years, and that's not having physical presence in any of those countries. I think 18 of those are in Africa. So technology is really at the core of the business, but it's a very fine balance, because we're in the world of human resources and humans, people. You can't fully automate recruitment. Believe me, many people have tried and are still trying, but it just doesn't work, not yet. I'm not saying it will never get to that point, but there's a very famous story about Amazon that tried to use AI, and the issue with technology like AI is it almost forms biases for you. So what happened with Amazon is it looked at their internal staff complement and said, okay, well, there's a higher percentage of men at Amazon, so clearly, the algorithm needs to say that we need more men, because that's what we've got at the moment. So there's a very fine balance between human and machine. And that's really what we strive to sort of achieve in terms of how we've managed to significantly reduce the hiring time frame. Again, we work at the top end of the market, so we're talking at sort of senior director level and upwards predominantly. One of the biggest issues is availability of people to conduct interviews. That tends to be a big bottleneck in anyone's process. We were using video when Corona was still a beer and wasn't a virus. So we were using video a long time ago, and we found that really does speed up the process. And it's not just what we would call an asynchronous video, which is you getting your phone and answering a few questions. This is a live interview that we do with our candidates, working with our clients to understand the sort of questions they want answered. So effectively, what we've managed to do is take out the first part of that process, the first interview, and conduct that digitally. And again, because we're working across so many different countries and different time zones, it's proven hugely beneficial to our clients. So that's the sort of the thing that speeds things up from our clients' perspective. I think talking about technology, we do use a bit of AI in the business, but very, very carefully, because it's not quite there yet, nor is any sort of machine learning when it comes into human capital. But what we have done, when I say we've got technology at our core, all of our business is inbound. So we don't have a sales team. I've never had a sales team at Talentinthecloud. All of our business is either done through digital marketing, it's done through referral, or is done through sort of networking and various different sort of elements like that. But again, using digital technologies and digital content, that's been a real key for us. And I think that's really what's got us into the position that we're in, and we're fortunate to find ourselves in at the moment.
Thank you so much, Darren. And it's very impressive to learn that your business went digital way before the virus. And we find ourselves in a situation where now to survive, you need to have a digital presence. So thank you for that.
Pleasure.
And I would like Darren to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, and please give us more information about Regal Africa Group.
Hi, thank you, Lauren. And I'm very happy to be on this panel. As mentioned, my name is Gaitha. I run a company called Regal Africa, where we basically help our clients create wealth. And really our focus at Regal Africa is to really help people in trade and investment. But it just so happens that I'm a fintech enthusiast. I really believe in technology for good. So what we do at Regal Africa, and what I've been championing my team to do, is how do we use more technology to engage with other businesses, to engage with other clients. And I recognize the opportunity a lot around digital trade. I keep saying that's the great equalizer in Africa, because before, access to the global markets has been very challenging. But since inception, just like Darren was talking about, we've been using technology since 2015, when we started Regal Africa. And really it has enabled us, even with our small team, to run a very effective and efficient business. And so those are the services we offer to our businesses and enable them to run businesses more professional, so that they can be able to access more markets, receive payments, run operations, financial management, and that is all done through technology. So at Regal Africa, we are walking the talk. We believe in digital trade, and because we are an advisory firm, what we do offer is services. So trade is services is very important for us, and we say that location should not limit us in whatever we want to do. I can service a client here in Nairobi, as you can see my background, here in Nairobi from anywhere in the world, and that is exactly what we do. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you so much. And before I let you go, it's quite interesting that you mentioned you have a lean team, because having seen the successes, or having seen, I'm in Nairobi as well as you are, and I've gotten to learn of your success through our local news. And I actually thought you had a huge team supporting you. So as a leading financial services firm, who has said that you offer services even beyond Kenya? So how do you get these customers that, are not in Kenya? And what role has technology played in your service to these diverse needs of these customers?
I think for us at Regal Africa, and we're very deliberate from the very beginning, is to build an excellent brand. So for us, we kept saying that we're offering world-class service, right? And our actually core value is what we call ticket to financial success, where we talk about teamwork, we talk about trust, integrity, client-centric knowledge. So those are the key things that we said we needed to do in order for us to build a brand. But beyond building just a brand, is delivering, right? So even though, and like rightfully, as you say, people expect us to be a very huge team. In fact, when our team members come in, they think it's a very huge operation. It is huge in regards to vision, but what we have done is find the right people from everywhere around the world. So I'm in Nairobi. My marketing branding is done in the States. My web development is done in India. I have South African partners. Like, I don't limit. Regal Africa does not limit itself from boundaries. It is where is the best talent, what is most cost effective. And that is why we actually champion for outsourcing of services that are not core. For me, as the vision behind Regal Africa, my core is to find clients and to offer them the right advice. Everything else, HR, accounting, legal, marketing, all those extras that need to be done, including financial management, are all outsourced, right? So for me, what I say is that with that being outsourced, I'm able to deliver to my clients what they expect and even go beyond that. So I've been able to get clients through building my brand. So you will find it all over social media and our web presence. But I also get a lot of referrals because I deliver. And so for businesses, institutions, government, or individuals who actually experience our service, then refer. So with services, it's all about value, right? So how do you position yourself? How do you deliver? But like I said, most importantly, is building your brand and doing it well with world-class service. And that is how we're going to have more African businesses in this space of trading for services.
Thank you so much. And I recognize some echoing between my two speakers because Darren mentioned that for him, his key drivers were digital marketing, networking, and referrals. And I had Anne's talk of the same, which was positioning herself strategically through, establishing a clear brand that expresses their values well, and then delivering what you have promised. So the businesses in the panel and the service, specifically those in service, you can tick on some of the takes that we're learning from our speakers today on how to take yourself beyond your country. So Miss Charity, I'm sorry for having kept you silent for this long. So again, I would like for you to introduce yourself and your business, and then tell us what does it take to run a tourism-based farm digitally, and does going digital give you access to customers that are, beyond Kenya?
Good afternoon. Trust that you're all well. We have some echo. I don't know, it's coming from your end?
Let me mute so that you can proceed.
Okay, cool, fantastic. So my name is Charity Githinji. I've been a practitioner in the tourism sector for the last 27 years. And our operations are basically within the East African region. And we have done a lot of work in tourism in terms of marketing, product development, mapping out of new sites, coming up with innovative products that will cater for the market. We have been using the digital space for a very long time in terms of reaching out to our customers, and that has helped us be able to work with people across the region. Currently, we are doing capacity building for the East African region on digital marketing, on product development, and most of our sessions are basically held online. We have very few face-to-face sessions. Marketing of the same is also done through the digital space. So what I would say is that, again, like Anne, we have a very lean staff. We don't have a lot of people, and we have invested in creating networks in the region and with other partners so that they can be able to deliver on our behalf sometimes. So we have grown through creating partnerships. A lot of people fear creating partnerships, but that should not be the case. Because through creating that partnership, you're able to grow your brand without you being there physically. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Charity. And other than, investing in network building, you've spoken about partnerships, and I've really had the same being said by the other speakers. And what I'm learning is that, one, having a digital presence is very key. Branding yourself is paramount, and of course, offering what you've promised is also, key to having a digital clientele that even grows through referrals. So back to you, Darren. While you're operating, beyond your country or beyond your station, I'd like to learn: are there licenses that you need to, to trade or to do your business globally? And then what policies and pricing decisions do you make when you offer your services?
It's quite a short one. Sorry? There's a bit of background, but it's quite a short answer, and the answer to licensing is no, not really. We're not a licensed industry, so we don't really need any sort of licensing to do what we do. However, some of the challenges that we've had to overcome, which is probably worth talking about. When we were initially a UK-based business, it was becoming increasingly difficult to get client funds from Africa into the UK. It was very, very difficult. We had to go through all sorts of hoops with compliance and with the banks and regulators. So we looked at sort of winding down our UK operation, or at least just keeping that for Europe, and setting up another legal entity. And we chose Mauritius because of the ease of doing business into Africa. So that was something that we did about a year and a half, nearly 2 years ago now. And whilst not cheap, it's rather expensive to have an entity in Mauritius. It does serve its purpose, and it allows us to get a free-flowing funds from across the continent. So that helps. I think some of the other challenges are things like withholding tax in the various different African countries, and just navigating through that. But again, the trade deals between Mauritius and the rest of Africa is again very favorable. So that was one less headache we've now got to contend with. So that was good. In terms of pricing, our pricing is pretty standard across all countries and all regions. It's not overly complex, but again, from where we run a search, a search is a search. quite honestly, whether it be in Nairobi or it be in Accra or it be in Limpopo, it really makes no difference. So the process is very much the same, and therefore the pricing is very similar. Obviously, we do, where possible, charge in local currency. One of our clients we use to process that's DPO Group. So whenever we need to invoice locally in Naira or in any other currency that's not sort of our core three, which is Euro, Sterling, and Rand, sorry, Euro, Sterling, and Dollar, and then we can use a payments gateway such as DPO to do that, and that works very, very well.
Thank you for that, and I think that takes the burden off so many service-based industries to learn that it's a matter of doing research. You could find that your service is not does not require you to acquire a license in many countries, like Darren is saying. And again, through research, you get to learn the difference in tax that affects your pricing and affects how you interact with organization within the different different countries. So a little bit of research and the strong will to build a global brand goes a long way. So thank you for that, Darren.
Lorraine, just one thing to add as well. I think, again, we've been, I suppose, a little bit fortunate in the sector that we operate in, but a lot of our clients operate Pan-Africa. So they'll have a headquarter, be that in South Africa, be that in Kenya, be that in Nigeria, be that in Mauritius. So actually, it's not always necessary to have separate legal agreements and contracts with every single country you operate in, depending on where your client's based. So, for us, with, again, I mentioned DPO Group, that's been our longest standing client. We have one central invoice to them in their Irish entity, and that covers pretty much the globe. So it's not always necessary for you as the supplier and the service provider to have a license in all those jurisdictions. As long as you satisfy, the procurement requirements of your customer, then that should suffice. I just thought I'd add that.
That is a very, very key way to wrap that up. So thank you so much. And you mentioned Mauritius, and Anne, I would like to get to you on this. So Mauritius is considered an international financial center, and Rwanda and Kenya are trying to, implement IFCs as well. What do you see are the opportunities and challenges?
Thank you, Lorraine, for that question. Yes, when you talk about Mauritius, as Darren put, he has established his business in Mauritius. I think Mauritius has established itself as sort of the gateway into Africa, right? So it's positioned itself of offering a certain product and service so that everyone goes to Mauritius. I think for me personally, I'm very passionate about Nairobi and definitely Kenya, and really making Nairobi as an international financial center, but it's offering different services, not exactly what is offered in Mauritius. And I think also Rwanda is positioned itself in a certain way. When I look at, for example, Nairobi, I look at it as sort of the gateway into Africa, but more around the capital market, flow of money into this region of Africa. We're looking at it in regards to commercial banks, fund managers, things of that nature. So when I look at saying that Kenya or Nairobi International Financial Center can still be there, Mauritius is really known for offshore. It has a lot of double treaties, so it makes sense to set up a company there if you have a Pan-African or a global outlook. But then again, when you're looking, I think, to work in Africa on the continent, you want to look at it from being on ground, for example, in Nairobi or in Kigali. And I think a lot of governments are trying to figure out how do you make yourself relevant. For example, London has an IFC, Dubai, Singapore, New York, but they're all very different and they're all focused on certain things. So for me, when I look at it, I feel that there is a different value proposition being in Nairobi, like I said, all around investments, all around financial services and banking, and making it different from Mauritius. I do have to say that I've been continuing championing that Nairobi should actually have more people who are knowledgeable in investment, in legal, in tax advice, just everything that is needed in an international financial service, in an international financial center, and that will make more people come to Nairobi in order for them to be in this particular sector, and it needs to grow. Unfortunately, I feel that it has not been something that has been put on the front line. It's actually part of what is called the Kenya Vision 2030, which was actually envisioned in the last administration to make sure that Nairobi becomes an international financial center, but it hasn't really been done. So when we are saying that if it gets being pushed, then more people will know that they can be in this industry, it's profitable, and they will take it up. I can tell if you go into Mauritius, Malta, New York, London, everybody wants to be in those particular, they want to be in financial services because they know they'll get jobs. So if Nairobi or Kigali wants to be an IFC, they need to be very deliberate in educating people, making sure that their populace is able to offer these services. And if they do, then they can be able to offer these services to different people around the world who want to position themselves in Africa. And especially because of the AFCFTA, everyone is either setting up shop in Africa to take advantage of it, or they're already here. And so I believe there's a great opportunity for different IFCs. Like I said, Mauritius has its proposition, Kenya has to come up with theirs, and Rwanda has to come up with theirs and make it slightly different so that we all win.
Thank you so much for that, Anne. I'm sorry, I can hear my echo again. I hope I'm audible. So I wanted, thank you. So I wanted to recognize that you're saying that different African countries can also champion being IFCs rather, and it needs deliberate action from their governments, not only to educate their people on how to offer these financial services, but also come up with licenses or come up with terms that make it attractive for other countries to partner with them. That is a very interesting notion, and I call upon the government officials within our conference to take note of this and to help us champion that. Ms. Charity, so I would like to ask, because we've also seen that the tourism is a sector that has been driving some African countries. And how do you propose that these countries or other countries can use digitalization to propel that industry further?
This is a very interesting question, and more so now that post-COVID, you've seen a really big shoot where people are now using the digital space, one, to brand themselves, to be able to sell their products, and to be able to also map out new products. Because what has happened now, we are off now that season where we were concentrating on beach and bush. And what people now want is different experiences that have been created around culture and heritage, which is a big thing because, again, it has a direct impact on our communities. So if you look at UNWTO, that is what they're pushing for. If you look at many nations around the world, we're pushing for domestic and regional tourism. So using the digital space is no longer, I'd say it's no longer an option, you have to use it. So in the areas of branding yourself, marketing yourself, and also transactions across countries, more so when we are looking at the intra-Africa trade as well, and intra-Africa tourism, we need to recognize that to reach out to those particular markets, we need to use the digital space. So a lot of innovations are coming up around that realm. When we came up with kenyabooking.com, we came up with a booking engine that works the same as bookings.com. We are right now at the beta testing stage, so we can be able to roll it out. But then again, you don't come up with a product that will serve you only at that particular time, but you come up with a product that is scalable. Such that if I go to a destination, I can be able to create an app that will give me information on that destination. I can also be able to create an app that has a lot of, I can be able to book for restaurants. If I want to go to the museum, I can be able to see which museums are around me. There are also other geo-mapping sites that have come up, and we'll be, partnering with them to see which way forward. the academia within Kenya especially has really been doing a lot of work on digitalization services. So those are people that you can be able to work with. The research that they've done is free. So one should not just sit back and say, I don't have information, because the information is there. Researchers have done the information and they want to share that information with you. If you look at the East African community, they've also done a lot of research and work on the digital space where tourism is concerned or where trade is concerned. And then again, what is everybody pushing for? Intra-Africa trade, intra-Africa tourism. How do you reach those markets? Through the digital space.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Charity. And that reminds me of an interaction I had with a foreigner where he is a biker. And in Kenya, we call them pikipikis. So he was impressed to see very many pikipikis in Kenya. And he said he would love to bring his biker friends into Kenya to interact with the pikipiki people. So I think what the solutions you're giving as a local or as an African offering the services through digital trade is that you have the ability to, go deeper and show the authentic African brand as an African person to the world. So thank you for encouraging us to, to build brands that are scalable and also to be authentic in what we offer. So thank you so much, Charity. Then I want to go back to Darren, and I recognize that Africa is called a young nation. We have lots of youth, and it's estimated actually by 2030, for example, we'll have 30 million young people. As a talent management expert, how do you think the job market will accommodate this? And what's your firm's role to address this?
That's a big question. Okay, let me see if we can unpack this a little bit. So I think there's a huge number of youth across the continent. And it'll be interesting to get some stats on, what that youth is doing in terms of education, what sectors they're focusing on, and if there are, a strong percentage of those that are focusing on the digital economy or the digital sectors. Okay, so I've got the grasp of digital skills. I'll work on the assumption that a percentage does, because I can't talk broadly enough across all sectors. That wouldn't be my place. But I think if we look at digital skills and we look at how that's going to impact workforce, I think it's going to be a bit of a double-edged sword. And I'll explain why. I think, first of all, it's fantastic for the youth coming through, because the opportunities now are not just based in their country of origin or their city of origin. Okay, if they can acquire the skills, they're now able to market their skills globally. And we've seen that happen over the last few years. We've had Andela that have made a big impact across the continent. We're seeing Google and Facebook with FANGs. Actually, it's not Fang anymore. It must be Mang, because they've changed their name. But the Facebooks of this world and the Googles and the Amazons. I mean, Amazon is setting up a center here in Cape Town and want to employ like 5,000 engineers. So we're seeing a huge demand now for digital skills, and I think the world, or the Western world, has woken up to the fact that there's amazing talent here on the continent. Amazing talent, right? So I think that's one of the key things. There is a downside to that. And what we've seen over the last 2 years after, during and after COVID, is that it's causing a bit of a remote brain drain. And I've spoken a lot about this over the last 18 months or so. And what I mean by that is, historically, you will find it's a bit of a famous saying: if you go to any bar anywhere on the planet, you'll always meet a South African. Well, that's true, right? You'll always meet a South African. But what we're seeing now is that companies are saying, in the West, are saying, you know what? You don't need to relocate. You don't need to come to the Netherlands. You don't need to come to London. You don't need to come to San Francisco. you can be based where you are. Don't have to uproot your family. You don't have to go through the stress of relocating, because it's very stressful. I've done it 3 times with a family. It's not fun. And we'll pay you the grading we pay all of our engineers, regardless of where they are. So you can be sitting in Lagos working for Google and earning dollars or earning pounds or earning euros rather than earning naira. That's going to make you a lot more wealthy, without a shadow of a doubt. It's going to give you exposure to different tools and different working cultures. And because a large percentage of tech firms are now remote, it's really lowered the barrier of entry. So I think from an African tech community, and I'm talking about employers here, I'd be worried. I really would be worried, because I'm now not just competing with my local competitors. I'm now competing on a global scale. And I think Anne mentioned earlier, when she was looking at, or when she outsources various different parts of her business, there's always a commercial aspect to that. There's always pricing, right? So I'm not going to go and outsource my web development in London. It's going to cost me an arm and a leg. But I can, maybe look further east and get a much better deal. And I think that's going to be a challenge here in Africa. If I was an African fintech, certainly, although they tend to have a lot more money because of funding seems to be going crazy at the moment. But if I was a general sort of tech business in Africa, I'd be concerned, because how am I going to compete against these big players, these big international players? Maybe that gives us some confidence.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you. I think it's been very clear, and you've segued into my next question for you, which was to ask that now that after the pandemic, we've seen people working from home, and we've had this, sometimes you work from home, other times you need to go to the office. So this hybrid sort of work setting, is it something that you feel like in the HR space, it's something that will be embraced by employers? And as a person who supports women in fintech, what cross-border opportunities do you think will be available for them? And I'm sorry if you've already mentioned this, now that they're working remotely.
Okay, I'll answer this in reverse order. I think with the opportunities now for women. So as you mentioned, I do a lot of work in gender diversity across the continent and Europe as well. I think, again, if we look back over the last 18 months to 2 years, back in, I lose track of the dates, where we 2021, back in 2019, I think it was something like 43% of the leaders we placed in Africa were women. Okay, so 43%. If we look at what it was in certainly in 2020 and 2021, it's almost half of that. Now, what's the reason? I think one of the fundamental reasons were, I'm talking here to a group of women, so please, if I'm speaking out of turn, please correct me, okay? But I think women generally are less risk adverse. Are more risk adverse than sort of males, and a lot of women have found themselves in quite a difficult situation during the pandemic, where it was kind of the better the devil, even if I wasn't necessarily happy in my job or my company. You know what, we're not going to rock it now, because who knows what's going to be around the corner. No one knew how long the pandemic was going to last for. So we certainly saw a decline in numbers there. So I think there was definitely a sizable shift. However, that's definitely recovered over the last 3 months. I think the last 3 months, it's been about 54% of the hires we've made have been women, and that's in leadership positions. So we've certainly seen an upward curve, which is fantastic. So I think there are more opportunities. I think the one thing that the crisis or the pandemic has done for all organizations is make them understand that you don't need to be sitting at your office from 9 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the afternoon and be tied to your desk. I think it's given a lot more flexibility to employees to say, you know what, if you need to go and pick the kids up from school, go and pick the kids up from school. You know, if you need a doctor's appointment, go to a doctor's appointment. I think there's become a lot more flexibility, and I appreciate there are some companies and some countries that it's still quite conservative, and they still expect, you know, for you to come in and be at your desk from 8 o'clock in the morning and, you know, have an hour's lunch break. But I think by and large, where, going back to my previous point, how a company is going to compete, you need to start looking at your whole value proposition for your employees. It's not just about, I can pay you another 1,000 naira, you know, a month, or an extra few $100s. It's actually, what's the working environment? Do you have flexibility? You know, if I need to go and take my child to the doctor, am I going to be made to feel guilty for that, or am I, you know, or is that, you know, completely fine with the business? So I think there's a lot of softer elements that are starting to come through. We're seeing certainly I wouldn't necessarily call it a demand, but almost an expectation now, where one of the first questions people usually ask is, well, how much is it going to pay? You know, what's the salary? Now it's like, well, okay, talk to me about the culture, talk to me about the environment, what's it like? People are a lot more conscious and cognizant of that now. So I think that's made a big difference. And I can't see that changing anytime soon. I think there will be hybrid. I don't think a lot of organizations are set up to be 100% remote. It can be quite difficult. We went through that transition. And up until 2 weeks ago, I hadn't met half my team, and we're only a small company, right? So I literally hadn't met half my team, which was bizarre. So, you know, now the restrictions are kind of lifted. We can go and travel a bit more now, still being careful. But, you know, will we ever have one office with 50 people in an office? No, that just won't be our model moving forward.
Wow, very interesting. And I like that you explained the advantages that have come with the pandemic, because it's something that has really disrupted most of our lives. And I had it being called the COVID Kairos. And as much as women suffered from what we call the unpaid care work, it's nice to know that now the flexibility in the workplace shall allow us to be moms, wives, as we do our jobs. So it's good to have such advantages. And thank you for being a champion of women, Darren. We appreciate you for that.
My pleasure.
All right. So as we wind up, a question for you, Anne, and you mentioned this about the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. And this is something that's, you know, the buzz in Africa right now. But what is its impact in the services sector? Is it something that benefits people who do services, or is it just for the, you know, goods trading people, businesses?
All right, that's a good question. Because, hello? Okay.
Hi.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I have been talking to everybody about the AFCFTA, but remember, it's a phased out agreement. So a lot of it has been started, but the work will take some time. And definitely whenever people talk about trade, they focus on goods. So that was the sort of the first thing that a lot of people were looking at. How do we export? How do we trade? How do we move goods and people around? But the next protocol that is going to be discussed is around trade in services, intellectual property, a lot of things that deal with services. So that is coming. But because we know it's coming, and especially us in the private sector, I always say that you need to be proactive so that you can also advocate for the right policies to be put in regards to services. So for me, in trading services, I see great opportunity, both brought about by the AFCFTA and also globally. I'll give an example. I've been mentioning about Regal Africa because we have been focused on offering advisory services. And because we support businesses, one of the things that we were doing is actually raising capital. Now, when you're raising capital, one of the things investors look for is your financial record. Unfortunately, in Africa, most businesses don't keep their financial records. So how do you go ahead and actually offer this? How do you actually support them? You can't support them. So what we did, based on actually something I thought about when I was doing my MBA in San Francisco. When I was in San Francisco, I recognized there were so many people coming to Silicon Valley from India because they were actually always in the IT space. It's something that was really focused in the IT space. And I remember thinking, what is it that in Kenya we offer service-wise? And one of the things I recognized was accounting. My father was an accountant, my grandfather was an accountant. Everybody did accounting. It's sort of, you finish high school, you go in and start doing your CPA. It's something that we do. So in coming back, it was something at the back of my mind, but I didn't actualize it. But when I started Regal Africa and I recognized the challenge that people were having raising capital, we decided to offer a solution under what we call our global office department. Under global office, we offer accounting outsourcing. So from anyone around the world, I'm in Nairobi, someone is in the States, someone is in South Africa, someone is in Nigeria, we offer accounting outsourcing for them. And the way we do it is we actually link them up with online accounting software, and then everything is done digitally. So all the inputs, revenue, all the expenses, and they're able to get their books, okay? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the opportunity of the FCFTA is to say, if we don't have enough bookkeepers and accountants and auditors in Niger, but they are in Kenya, that is the service we'll offer, right? We have all these sort of offshore places that need fund accounting, the Maltas, the Mauritius, the Jerseys, right? And it might be very expensive for them to actually have sort of a fund accountant there. But they can come to Nairobi and we offer that service, right? So those are the things that we're doing at Regal Africa, and saying when it comes to accounting, bookkeeping, audit, anything to do with financial records is something that we're championing that can happen from Kenya. And so we are going to continuously see more services happening, all right? The limitation would be around regulation. You asked that, about that, because for example, there are some places where you, of course, if you're actually offering accounting and audit service, you need to be actually licensed in that jurisdiction. But when it just comes to bookkeeping, you don't need that, right? You don't need to be licensed. But so again, those are some of the things that we offer with virtual CFO services. So I believe that with the value proposition that we're having, we will start to see that happening. So Kenya might be accounting. South Africa is probably customer service. Maybe go to Nigeria, they're good in marketing, digital marketing. So we'll start seeing the different African countries are sort of positioning themselves into something. Also, for example, in Kenya, it's a lot of IT. So Darren mentioned about Adela. We have great talent on this continent. We're educated. And the truth about it, whether it's a business in Africa, whether it's a business around the world, we look at costs. So if I get an accountant and I'm gonna pay them $5,000, or let's do bookkeeping, I'll pay them $2,000. And next you can get that same service through Regal Africa at $500. I will take the $500, right? So that is what we're saying. There's going to be a growth of trade in services, both intra-Africa trade and globally, as long as we have an educated populace that is able to actually take up these services. And the last thing I'd have to say that, because before you actually roll out something, you have to pilot it. My team of accountants are mostly young people and women. Young people, because again, they're starting out, they need to learn, maybe it's very hard for them to actually get a position at a company. So what we do is you can get an accountant who has 5-10 companies and you pay them a small amount of money, but it grows. So for example, each company, they would probably get $100, but if they are assigned to 10 companies, now that's $1,000, right? So that's what we're looking at. The other thing we've seen is women. A lot of women are educated. So somebody was a CPA somewhere, but because they got married, had children, they don't want to stay in that corporate environment, but they still have that skill set. So you offer them, you give them a position to be a virtual CFO or a part-time accountant, and that way it's flexible for them. So we're going to start seeing more women and young people actually trading in services, professional services, customer care. You'll have to be able to see, you will be able to see this growing. And that's the kind of work that we're doing at Regal Africa to champion the trading service place.
Thank you so much, Anne. I'm very happy that, sorry, I can hear the echo again. Thank you. So I'm very happy that you've given us sort of your final remarks. And I know you are a champion of trade and investments in Africa with Africa. So thank you for demonstrating that even if you are a CFO or you're someone who's just offering services within Kenya, if you position yourself correctly, you can offer these services virtually to other organizations, to other individuals in different countries. So thank you for that. Charity, I would request quickly for you to give us perhaps the impact of COVID on your business, and maybe just a quick advice on businesses that are doing service-based services locally. How can they, expand or digitally grow themselves?
All other sectors, tourism was negatively impacted by COVID. But that does not mean that because you've been affected by something, you sit back and do nothing about it. And that's why we encourage everybody to come on board and innovate, come up with innovative products. And most of those innovative products are closely knitted with the digital space. We cannot run away from that. So yes, COVID did affect our incomes for a period of time, but thereon we've now come up with innovative products. But one of the major challenges has been we are all at different levels within the African space in terms of the digital acceptance, in terms of marketing, in terms of knowledge on how to, come up with a new product. People are stuck up to the old ways of doing marketing, old ways of source markets. So currently we are trying to encourage people to stop looking at the old source markets or the old niche markets that they were always looking at, but also now look at what is within them, the low hanging fruits in terms of tourism. So I would say, yes, there's an effect, but there's also the positive side of that effect. And what I would suggest to people in the sector is go out there, innovate, come up with new products. Look at things that have a positive impact on the communities, and then also try and tie them up with SDGs, because the SDGs, the 17 SDGs, most of them closely tie up with tourism, and those affect the communities in a positive way. Yeah, so that's basically what we can say about the impact. Yes, it's there, but then there's always new ways of doing things, so you don't have to be stuck up in the old ways. Yeah.
Thank you, and especially for being succinct. Darren, thank you for holding on in this forum. I would also like for you to give your final remarks in the discussion.
Well, I think that with the African Free Trade agreement in place, when that really does start to get some traction, I think it will open up a lot of opportunities for people. I think that it's important that, as you mentioned a bit earlier on, Lorraine, do research, make sure you understand what the requirements are when you're conducting business in different countries that are outside of your own. You can get a nasty shock when you suddenly get a large percentage of your invoice discounted because of withholding tax that you've not factored in. So I think there's a lot of very smart, knowledgeable people, as per this panel today, who are there to help and there to advise. So I think, make sure you do your research, as Anne was saying a bit earlier on as well. Building networks, making sure, sorry, it wasn't Anne, apologies, it's important to build your networks and to understand, who's vital, who's key, and who can really help you navigate what are quite complex, environments and quite challenging places to work.
Okay, thank you so much, Darren, and the rest of my panel. I had taken key notes to close the session, but I figure I'll just be echoing what you've said. But basically, we've talked about really having a brand that allows you to go beyond your local country. We've talked about networking, digital marketing. We've talked about researching the licenses or the regulations that are needed for you to expand. And like I said, I was going to echo what they said, so bear with me. And Of course, we've spoken about the advantages and disadvantages that we've seen with COVID, but my key takeaway or my key take home is that COVID should be a reinforcer for you to innovate and for you to build back better. So thank you everyone for staying tuned. Thank you to Ms. Anne Gaitha, to Ms. Charity Githinji, and to Mr. Darren Franks. It's a privilege to have, had this conversation with you. I'm really, really excited to see how the African trade agreement will, bring us more opportunities as entrepreneurs in Africa. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.